address itself. So I think there are clearly maybe 4 or 5 objectives that the major community organizations should sign on to. I mean, in the Millennium Council, there was where each organization had sent in a letter identifying who its representatives were, and they had mandated certain actions that were supposed to be constituted in a constitution about the process. The Baba Shanti, based on their unique organizational structure, could only act as an observer to this concept, right? So we have to rise above that, find out what it is above that that can unify in a legal manner the representational rights of the community without disturbing the individual order of each member. And so from my experience and from what I heard from the human rights advisor, I think that is very doable now. If we identify 4 or 5 objectives and say that legally, meaning to say not that anyone can move or, you understand? That these are the objectives of the Rastafari community and address the matters now. And I think some of those certainly would be reparation and repatriation, right? And the divinity of His Imperial Majesty. And I'm not sure I'd open the floor to that discussion, but that is necessary now, even as we deal with the ganja rights in relation to the government nationally and governments internationally, and the United Nations specifically, because the Rastafari right within ganja is going to have to be aligned with the United Nations, because they are actually governing how ganja is taken up by states, groups, and individuals. So my recommendation is that the major mansions, right, ought to sign an agreement fully addressing, and this agreement should be in the presence of lawyers or senior legal advisors as to protecting the individuality of the respective parties, and that should be what I recommend right now to go forward. Because I've been, I said, involved in especially the ganja negotiations and the bilateral with South Africa. It moves me to recommend that immediately. And I think that is very doable. But the parties have to be educated by proper legal consultation, that their rights are not being disturbed, their rights to be who they are and go the path that they have chosen individually, and get that accomplished. I don't think that any meeting, I think that is what is lacking from the last, this iteration of the community hall mansion, right? And because everything that we do now is a legal matter, and it is trying to, if you talk about trust fund, if you talk about money, if you talk about repatriation, you know, involving government to government, resettlement of people, all of this is related to legal matters. And to not have that type of a consultative persons in the room at the time it makes us, like we're talking to each other, like we're going to just depend on trust. And this goes beyond trust.
Yeah.
It goes beyond, it needs that level of advisory. Because for me, everyone is on the same path, and our paths added together gets us to the goal quicker, right? So we just need to have that type of support, not just here as we are now, but we must have legal mind that says, okay, we're going to support this collective move, and we come to it from our individual paths, just like any other OAU or any other unity organization. There's this negotiation that is hammered out in front of a legal framework that binds everyone. It's a settlement, but it binds you to your common goal. And I would suggest, from my experience of the last 10 years, that the communities are at that point, but they need the support of able legal, addressing.
If I might add something here, Minister, before I come in perfect here. Just the legal requirements that you speak of, Maxine, I believe are logically going to be or imposed on the Rastafari community because of the nature of the changing nature of the world in which we live, correct? Rastafari movement, as I think most of us know, has grown up on its strong faith and its support of its principles, and in a sense, never really had, although should have had all the human rights as anybody else, and probably even more, never really had those rights recognized. In fact, they were oppressed. Their rights were suppressed and oppressed. So what I'm trying to get across or to understand is that Rastafari had a history, was known for a history. In fact, Bob Marley always used to say to us, Rasta no sign paper. That no nothing, we no sign paper. But I think we're past that stage now. And because Rastafari has reached to the point of international fame and fortune, relatively speaking, in order to go further, in order to unite, those legal requirements are essentially a must, Minister. What we're trying to say. Not to suppress the freedom and the history and the culture and the religion of the movement. But if you live in a world in which we are living now, then to protect oneself and to move forward, one has to have the power to do so, and therefore you need the legal power to do so.
And just to say, Dickie, the Rastafari community, in my observation, saying that he didn't want to sign any paper was the context of that paper. It wasn't that they don't want to sign any paper, but they felt that if they signed paper within the jurisdiction of Jamaica, that somehow they are compromising their right, which is ultimately Jamaica did not include their positions in its independence negotiations. Therefore, they do not want to sign, they didn't want to register with no government organization, all of that to protect the essential right that their community represented. At this time, when you have the 6th region of Africa developed by the African Union claiming the people of the diaspora, you have the United Nations decade of the African descent that they seek to overstand the realities of over 200 million Africans, here. It shows that we are in a different dispensation in relation to who is addressing us. It's not Jamaica and the Jamaican government. We now have the African Union and we have the United Nations that are now focused on these area of rights. Therefore, our legal representation or our signatory to paper is not symbolized or relegated to Jamaica. It's relegated to three institutions: United Nations, the African Union 6th region, and the Jamaican government, who is party to all three. Right?
Bobo, that's all I'm on before further.
I want to say, President Dover,